Weather Wagers is back. We are midway through October. We are feeling the chill in the air. The leaves are changing. The apple cider is here, right? The logs are on the fire. And what a weekend of sports we have. Meteorologist Brett Thacker, meteorologist Dan Tomaso with you on this week's podcast. Again, Dan, people can find us everywhere.
Well, you just teed it up. I mean, we are in the thick of it. You know, whether it is the leaves falling, whether it is college football, the rankings starting to fall as well.
Yeah.
It is a fun time. And perhaps even the most fun part is the Phillies just surprising the you-know-what out of us.
That we are going to get into that because it's baseball season. Who knew?
It is baseball season.
And
Do they play baseball in October?
I didn't think they did, but I will say that it has been a pleasant watch.
Indeed.
To take in some of the Phillies games here in the afternoons during this stretch that we have had. We are going to get into all of that. Now, I want you to tell everybody here again where they can find us just up front, because we've had a lot of you like, subscribe, listen to us, but we want more, and we think we have a pretty good time. We want you to come along for the ride.
We certainly do want you to come along. So, again, you can find us abc27.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. He is meteorologist Brett Thacker on Facebook, at Brett Thack, ABC27 on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, at Doppler Dan. Facebook, meteorologist Dan Tomaso. But don't forget, if you can't find us those ways, your favorite podcast platform, you can also find us there, whether it's through Apple, whether it's through Spotify, Google, Amazon, and, of course, the video feed, too. YouTube. We have a lot of fun, so you might want to watch the video feed as well.
You're going to want to watch it today with this week's podcast because I lost a bet that we're going to talk about to recap last week. That's a lot of fun, and we are going to get into that. So that's how people can find us. Let's review last week here as we look ahead. I did not do so hot. Quite frankly, neither one of us did. We did not have a winning record, but why don't you go ahead and tell everybody, especially those listening, how we did on the picks last week.
Okay, so let's run things down. Obviously, you were right on Tennessee. Tennessee, Rocky Top is rocking, doing pretty well.
I had a friend of mine say that, do you think Tennessee needs to beat Alabama to say that, they're legit? And I said, no, I don't. I think that last week proved it to me. They went into Tiger Stadium, Death Valley, and they put a whooping on LSU that typically doesn't happen. Brian Kelly's a good coach. I don't think LSU is a great team, but to see what Tennessee did to them in their house, that proved it for me.
It proved it to me, too. I mean,
I was impressed.
A noon start, early start in Death Valley.
Right.
Shrimp and grits were on the grill, and
jambalaya.
I don't think Mr. Kelly got his team cooking at all. So that was a rough one, and I gave the Tigers a little more credit than I should. But the second game is the one that we really need to pay attention to, because you were convinced the Hurricanes were going to stir up a fuss.
Well, I wasn't convinced, but I felt like Vegas knew something here, that they were favored in that game, because I said it. Miami's not a great team at all. And of course, they blew it, and I was convinced that Gene Chizik was awful. Now, I will say this. Listen, it was a close game. And it ended up being close, but I have to pay off this bet. So let's finish reviewing the picks first, and then I will make good on it.
Well,
you're 2 for 2, by the way, on side wagers.
I am, and I'm quite proud of that. The other thing I'm quite proud of is Illinois' old school offense, and that score 6-9. We had this pegged.
We did.
The over under 35. We didn't get anywhere close to that number.
No, we didn't. So we did get that one right now. Of course, Illinois did not cover.
They did not cover.
It was a half point away there, a hook away. But we split that. But both of us got it right there with the under. Giants. I've said it from the start. I was picking not Daniel Jones, but Saquon Barkley. He did Saquon things.
He's awake again.
You've heard me say this now, and I hope finally you'll agree with me. Something's wrong with the Packers.
Something is wrong with the Packers. However, they were competitive in that game. It came down to a 4-quarter contest, and, weird things happen. It's early in the season.
But they were 8-point favorites.
I know. Something is a little bit off. Aaron Rodgers seems frustrated. Yeah. They certainly don't have the receiving core without Devontae Adams any longer, but we'll get into the Packers a little bit more, because this could be a big week for them.
Yeah, I would absolutely. We're going to talk about them. The Eagles pulled it off. They remain the only undefeated team.
Desert.
They did not cover those, so we both got that wrong. And then we both got the under-the-radar game last week correct. How about Jeff Brom and Purdue?
Love them.
Going on the road. Maryland really coming through with having a competitive team this year. But Purdue, won
They have more
outright.
firepower. And
Yes.
I said to you, and I think you agreed with me at the time, that we'll see how good that Penn State win is as the season goes on. And Purdue has a real chance here in the West.
Sure, they do. A lot of people have a chance in the West. We're going to have a Big Ten West game on our Games of the Week
Yes, we
coming
will.
up this week. Here was my best bets last week, and I flunked. I
Well,
went 0 for 3.
I will say one thing in your defense.
Yeah.
Did you know about the Will Levis thing? Because I didn't know about the Will Levis thing.
This is the problem with, it's not a problem, but we do record this on Wednesdays. So when you are trying to figure out spreads and a forecast and everything else, now that's not to say we haven't done a heck of a job. I think we've done pretty well.
I think so, too.
In forecasting the weather and picking our games, but sometimes injuries happen, or in college, it's like Fort Knox, and these coaches
never know.
think that they are, the Napoleon or
The keeper of the keys.
The keeper of the keys. Now, in some cases, I agree with them, but I didn't know about the Will Levis thing, and had I known that, and then there was some bad blood between Shane Beamer and Mark Stoops. I don't know if you saw that, but
Yeah.
did you see Shane Beamer dancing in the locker room?
I did.
Because Stoops had made a comment at media days about, I don't need to dance funny and put on sunglasses, and so Shane Beamer called him out, and he danced and put on sunglasses in the locker room. So there was some bad blood there. So that I agree, but at the end of the day, the ticket lost.
The ticket lost. I mean, that was a stinky line in the end.
And, I'm going to save the Alabama chatter because they are also going to show up on our Games of the Week. But Jimbo, again, no moral victories for him, but he did cover.
Which is impressive because,
Alabama
look at that
did not.
line.
Yeah, very big. But Alabama's had trouble.
They've had
And
trouble.
I want to talk about that.
Yes, they have.
And then my Jaguars let me down, and Doug Peterson.
Oh,
and
Dougie.
Let me be the first to apologize to Lovie Smith, who I kind of called out here in
You
the
did.
podcast that
You
I said, what has Lovie ever done for me? But he had his team ready to play. They went to Jacksonville. So I went over 3. You had a pretty good week, including, if this was an actual betting slip, you would have, I think, gotten something back. You pushed with the Kansas line.
I did. Now,
We're going to count it as a loss, though.
Lawrence, Kansas had a huge weekend. They had game day there.
Fun.
And boy, did they ever show up. 38-31, a classic Big 12 shootout. Where I feel bad, though, is we don't know the status of Kansas's quarterback. I mean, their season's in peril.
It doesn't look good right
Yes.
now. And that we know all about a quarterback injury that derails a season
Indeed we
after
do.
a hot start. And that would be tough.
It would be very tough. Now, I think the kid that came in was a North Texas transfer. His
Right.
name is Bean, and he held it
Bean-
together.
I saw. So I was
Mr.
out.
Bean.
I was out this weekend. My wife and I had our anniversary. So
Congratulations.
And I told her there would be nothing more that I would love than to watch football all day, but I lost that. So we were doing other things because normally we're on the Twitter
Sure.
and we're tweeting away
Absolutely.
and keeping our eye on this stuff. But all I saw was when I logged on. I saw nothing but Bean. And I'm like, what game are we talking about here? And then I realized it was the Kansas backup, but who actually fared pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, almost pulled it out. And
Yes.
again, at home, Lawrence was rocking. It just didn't totally work out, and that happens. These teams do tend to be a little bit more even than a lot of people expect, and you lose close games. I mean, talk to James Franklin about losing close games.
Yeah, and then quickly wrapping this up, UCLA,
Wow.
chip ship.
What a season so far.
I was impressed because
I am very impressed.
Utah is a physical team, and
They were a playoff team for a lot of the experts.
they were my dark horse team.
Yeah.
Even I thought that. We're going to talk about Utah coming up. But congratulations to Chip Kelly. By the way, how smart does Kevin Warren look at this moment in time?
Extremely smart. I mean, 2 undefeated Pac-12 teams just about to be swooped up into the Big Ten. It's almost like he knew it was coming.
By the way, lots of problems with sling, lots of problems with carriage. ESPN and Dish had a dispute and all of that. And so no matter what happened, where is the Big Ten going to be next year? All over the air.
You can find it anywhere. I mean,
So-
it's quite a dynamic here over the next couple of years in college football.
From 2020, when he shut the league down and was really almost run out of town, to now, Kevin Warren. I don't know if I've ever seen a transformation quite like this, but he has a lot of fans right now.
And not only that, I mean, he's right there with the SEC, which when I was in school, it was always the SEC and everybody else. The Big Ten was falling behind.
Yeah,
Now,
anymore.
not so much.
So great there. And then the Falcons, kudos to you. I mean, that was a pretty big number. It wasn't that big of a leap, but you took them 8.5, and they did what they needed to do.
You just mentioned there might be something wrong with the Packers.
There might be something wrong with the Bucks.
I think there's something wrong with the Bucks, and
Yeah.
that's why I.
And
went
I think
for
it's the
this.
same thing. I think that the quarterbacks and the receivers aren't gelling.
Correct.
They don't have a lot of chemistry, and I think that is creating some issues because, when things aren't easy for Rodgers and Brady, they get frustrated. And I know a lot of fans watch that and say, they're crybabies and blah, 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 and Tommy Brady and Aaron Rodgers. But when you are a competitor, as those two guys are, whether you love them or hate them, of course they're going to be upset, and they're trying to get better.
Yeah.
But something does seem off about it. So right now, we want to shift gears a little bit here, and we'll talk about our records here. So I haven't fallen too far behind, but I'm 500.
You're sitting at 500.
Not bad
Very
against the
respectable.
spread, 31-31. You've leaped a little bit more ahead at 35-27. And, of course, the loser of our season record total gets a pie in the face.
We got to start baking that pie.
A
It's not quite
huckleberry
Thanksgiving,
pie.
but
A
we got to
huckleberry
start
pie.
thinking about it.
Okay, that sounds great. So you're 4 games ahead of me, and we will get into that. Of course, we're going to keep tabs on that. We should really put that on social media.
Yes, we will keep a running tab out there for sure.
Okay, so now we want to talk about the bet that I lost, and that is a sad moment. I will say though that I wore my orange tie for the Mets. I'm going to put on. We have so many Mets fans that loiter around this place, and so they both brought in, a couple of guys brought in some hats and jerseys. I'm going to put them on both so you can narrate as I put this on, and then I have to sit here through it. But I want you to, as I'm doing this, talk about why the Mets blew it.
Well, there's a lot there. But yes, Brett and I decided a side wager here this week would be that the loser has to wear a Mets hat. And again, this goes back to the Miami-North Carolina game. He picked Miami for some sort of reason. He was following the Vegas line. Vegas did have Miami favored. I followed the Tar Heels because that's my guy, Mac Brown. And now we're watching a devout Phillies fan put on a Jacob deGrom jersey, which, by the way, may be null and void here after he doesn't sign with the Mets in the offseason. And on top of that, this is Bobby Bonilla.
Do you think that's going to happen?
I actually think it's going to happen. I think he's out. And I think part of it is I don't know what Brett's doing, but whoever donned the Mets uniform here down the stretch, it wasn't a collapse, but it certainly wasn't the start of the season that they had. And over time, they gave ground to the Atlanta Braves, who came on hotter than a tea kettle in August and September. And so again, it wasn't
a collapse.
I wouldn't call it a collapse. They didn't go under 500. They didn't, totally. Crap the bed, but. I think
it was pretty close.
I think it was. I think it overall pretty much was a close call for a
I feel like my skin is crawling. I really do. I can't stand
this. Is Steve Cohen, everybody.
Right
here is Steve Cohen.
If I had a tenth of Steve Cohen's money, we could do a lot more with this podcast.
He has a shark saved in formaldehyde, is the word, in his mansion. So
really?
Yes.
Okay.
When you have $17 billion behind you, you can buy a shark. You can buy whatever you want. He bought a team.
Yeah, but he did. He did.
I do think the biggest reason why the Mets floundered.
I think of Jim McElwain when I think of Sharks.
I do too. Whatever happened there, but I think the biggest reason why they didn't finish the season strong was I never felt that their lineup was deep enough. They have Pete Alonso, they have Francisco Lindor, but the other outside pieces just never made a ton of sense to me.
Well,
whether it was Eduardo Escobar, whether it was Jeff McNeil, who's a great hitter, by the way, but it never seemed to come together. And Buck in the playoffs, there's something weird about Buck in the playoffs.
I do like Buck Showalter, though.
I like him.
But maybe you're right. And the other thing I was saying, the Phillies, I think it's the opposite. I always felt like our lineup had what it took.
Yes, I agree.
But that
they weren't healthy for a while.
The pitching needs work. Now, you could still say that. But when our lineup, like yesterday's game, remember we're recording this on Wednesday, but like yesterday's game, we beat the Braves. The Phillies are 1-0. The bats worked, so we scored enough because the bullpen tried to blow it. When you score enough, you're okay.
Right. And it's
we'll
hard
see
to
how
score
that plays
in October.
out.
It's
It
hard,
is.
and so you need a deep lineup.
All right, so that's my next question here. Can the Phillies survive? Can they go on and try to take on the Braves? I'll tell you, they are sitting at 1-0 right now.
It's better than sitting
big.
0-1.
Well, no, that to win that first game statistically is huge. The bats seem to be working. I'm going to tee you up here because you told me privately, and I agree with you, that they're playing with house money.
They're playing with house money.
There's no pressure on these guys, and boy, they're having fun, and it shows, doesn't it?
They finally broke through.
And maybe there was too much pressure on this team from New York.
I think so, too. That could be the other part of the problem, is that there was so much hype about the Mets coming in. It was almost expected they made a deep run.
Right.
Whereas the Phillies, we were just trying to break a drought. 11 years of not getting into the playoffs. I think
we didn't even know if we could do it. Like you said, the fact that we're there at all is you just got to get in.
I think the big thing was you get through September, you don't collapse.
Right.
then the pressure is eased a little bit. Okay, you get into the playoffs. These guys aren't necessarily used to the playoffs. A lot of young guys that haven't been there, done that.
And the pitchers were phenomenal.
Oh, my goodness.
Nola.
And Wheeler.
Outstanding.
No
They did what
earned
they needed
runs.
to. Look at you. I just sense you're sitting on there on your little perch looking at me looking like this, and you're just thrilled, aren't you?
I think, you could pose as a great Steve Cohen or a Buck Showalter, you name it. I mean, you're ready.
How about Keith Hernandez?
Keith Hernandez. Now, by the way,
Yes.
he ticks me off because,
Oh, I love Keith.
well, Alec Boehm, what a turnaround this season. And, again, Keith Hernandez, very critical about the Phillies defense. And what has come up big? What has come up
The
big?
Phillies defense. And I will say Keith, though, like some of our friends, and this is why I kind of like him, even though, I don't agree with the comment, but he's a troll.
He's a troll. A lot of hubris
He's a
there.
troll. And, yeah. So, anyway, the biggest factor, in your opinion, moving forward in this series. Now, remember, some of you may be listening to this late in the day, Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. So we're going to know more than we know right now. But what is your biggest factor in this series moving forward, especially now with the Phillies up 1-0?
Well, okay, so you have to take game 2 or game 3. You're going to lose a game somewhere. They're not going to go undefeated, but you have to win game 2 or game 3. And if you do that, you're at home.
Win it all.
Finish the job.
You need 3 games this
You
time.
need 3
Yep.
games, and I think they either win game 2 or win game 3, and they finish in 4.
What's the pitching rotation? Who's up today?
All right, so we got Wheeler today.
Yeah.
Nola on Friday.
Yeah.
Undetermined yet what will happen if it goes to game 4.
If
but,
it goes to game 4.
by the way, we stole a game without our best pitching on the mound. That was the big thing.
No.
Ranger Suarez was tough. He battled.
He did well. He did what he needed to do, and our offense did what it needed to do.
Correct.
Now, the other issue is I would love if we could wrap this up in 3 games
be
because I
great.
don't want to have to pay attention on Saturday when there's college football.
Because it's a huge weekend.
It's a huge weekend. All right. Now, this is a weather podcast as well. Let's talk about the weather. I am a bit concerned. This podcast is dropping probably at some point, either during this game or maybe a little bit before on Wednesday. I'm concerned that Wednesday's game may have some showers in and around the Atlanta area.
If not showers, possibly some lightning.
Yes, the game is scheduled to start first pitch at 4:35. What happens if there? I mean, does the MLB have any contingency plans here? Are they just going to delay it until they're going to get this game in today?
Well, I would hope if there is rain nearby within 30 miles and there's that threat of lightning that they don't start. The worst thing you could do is start and then get the starters in the game and then have to yank them. That's the worst possible scenario.
But did they delay this until tomorrow? How does that work? Or do
I don't
they
think
just
they'll
push
delay
it?
tomorrow.
They just push it back.
I think, they do watch radar. I don't know if
Yeah.
they watch it as well as we do.
Do you think they watch our podcast?
I certainly hope so. Paging Dave Dombrowski, paging Mr. John Middleton. We're here for you.
Yes, indeed. I am concerned, but it looks like at some point this evening they are going to get
There's a
dry
window.
weather.
I think there's a window.
Okay, so they're going to get that game in. It may be a little breezy in Atlanta at times as a few of these showers push through. Now I want to look ahead. Obviously, there is going to be a game 3 no matter what.
Coming to Philadelphia, playoff baseball at the bank.
And that's going to be packed. I mean, that is a packed house. That's going to be on Friday.
Yes.
We don't know what time the game is, though. But the good news is Friday looks like a stellar day in the
it
city of
looks
brotherly
good.
love.
We do have showers coming through Thursday, but it should be clearing. So timing actually worked out very, very well. Now,
Yep.
the only thing I will say is it will be cooler. Does that affect the way Atlanta plays? I'm very curious. Does the ball not travel as far?
Well,
Could the ballpark play a little small?
If we can steal the game today, boy, that would be.
Go up 2-0 coming home. Finish
That'd
the
be
job,
great.
boys.
There may be a little bit of a breeze at times, too, on Friday. But, again, we aren't quite sure when this game is going to be yet. We will know more after today. Remember, again, these are recorded. We are recording this on Wednesday. A couple of things to discuss, and then we'll get into our games of the week. But
Yes, sir.
one of the games of the week is Penn State and Michigan. Penn
We
State,
are.
on the road against a top 5 opponent. Here's a little trivia question for you. When is the last time that Penn State beat an AP top 5 opponent on the road?
It has to be in the 80s, I would think. I don't think I've been alive for it.
Okay, it was 5-0. You're wrong. It was 5-0 Penn State, coming off of a bye week,
Ooh.
going to Ann Arbor
Interesting.
to knock off a top 5 Michigan squad in 1994.
Wow.
With that undefeated
So
Penn
I was
State
5
team.
years old. I don't quite remember that.
No, but it was the last time that happened, and again, a very similar setup.
Mm-hmm.
I do worry, though, because I think that this Michigan team looks tough. The question I have
They
for
look
you,
physical.
they look physical. Now, here's a question. Is this Michigan team similar to last year's, or is this Michigan team all hype and sort of like the Jim Harbaugh teams when he first got there, which, they would start out 3-4-0 and then kind of face stiffer competition and have some problems?
I think overall, Penn State's schedule has been harder to this point. Between the road games, between the Purdue test, game one,
Penn State has been battle tested.
let's not forget, Michigan had 2 games to basically throw away in the beginning of the season to figure out, all right, is it McNamara, is it McCarthy?
And I think Harbaugh wanted it to be McCarthy.
Right. So
It
it just goes to show you that they didn't have tough opponents to start out the season. Now, I will say this. Going into the big house is a very, very tall task. My question is there enough motivation in that locker room, whether it's from Sean Clifford, whether it's from other guys on the team that were there last year that could have won? They had that game last year. Unfortunately, it was a Brent Pry meltdown again.
Well, I do like Manny Diaz in the defense.
I think that's the change.
We've joked a lot about. I remember there was a statement made a year or two ago about the team watching Netflix and being distracted. And then earlier this year, it was laser tag. And now I saw that Sean Clifford was out picking pumpkins. And of course, the first comment I saw underneath this report where he talked about it was nice. I think he was out with his girlfriend picking pumpkins, and somebody said, "Why wasn't he watching Michigan game film?" So, listen.
Well, these teams know each other. That's the other thing.
The guys are allowed to have fun on a bye week. However,
And they are kids.
However-
we tend to forget that.
well, but they're also. I mean, this
Now
is,
they're paid. That is a big
yeah.
difference.
Let's not gloss over that. But here's the deal. No matter what, they have to be focused on game day. The coaches have to do a better job. James Franklin does not have a great record off of bye weeks.
No, and they said, they examine this all off season. He goes through these different mantras throughout the year.
Yeah.
He knows it's a problem. It's all about how they start. The first quarter into the second quarter, I think will say a lot about how the game goes.
But I'll add to that. I actually think it's all about how they finish, based on what you said earlier.
True. That is
Because
true, too.
we've had defensive meltdowns on the road before. Can Manny Diaz overcome that? Keep the pressure on? And really, has J.J. McCarthy faced much pressure?
They're all great questions, my friend. And by the way, I'm going to be a realistic Penn State fan here over the next few weeks. I've said all along, I think they're only going to get 1 game out of the next 3. Now, you pick the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's this one.
I don't know either. We have to be realistic. We're going to get into that in our games of the week. Quick thoughts on the Eagles-Cowboys NFC
Cowboys
showdown.
week.
It's Cowboys week, but isn't this what you want, right?
This is exactly what you
want. The
want.
NFC East, everything's on the line, right? The records are similar. The Eagles are the only undefeated team. They get to host this first matchup. Cowboys have some injuries, including Micah Parsons, who I saw had a problem with his groin injury, but I think he's going to play. Isn't this just fun?
This is fun. This is the way the NFL should be. This is the way you draw it up. I mean,
Right.
You have an up-and-coming quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You have a vaunted receiving core for the Eagles. When can we ever say that?
Yeah. So we have a guy over here. He's a Cowboys fan. Now, he is watching this closely. He is telling us again in this game to take the under. And it's hit every time for him. So he's saying take the under. And, a lot of that could be defensive issues. And without, your guy Cooper Rush is in there.
How about Cooper
he's
Rush?
undefeated, by the way,
Well,
but not scoring a lot of points.
I put in my column, again, is there a quarterback question in Dallas? All this guy does is win. Is he Golden Rush or is he Cooper Rush?
I like that. Well, I hope he's bum rush on Sunday.
I think he's going to face a defense he hasn't seen quite yet, is my prediction.
Well, let's not ignore that either. We're going to get into that finally, or not finally, a couple more topics here. How about the Bills and the Chiefs? Again, you just talk about a great sports weekend, right? You've got the Major League
Matchup after
playoffs.
matchup.
Saturday is loaded with undefeated teams in college. Then you've got this big NFC East showdown Sunday night. But how about the Bills and the Chiefs? Is that a preview of the AFC Championship?
I believe so. Who else would it be at this point? I mean,
Well,
they look like the 2 best teams, unless the
Are the
Ravens.
Steelers playing?
Who?
I mean,
Who?
do they? What happened there?
Well,
I mean,
Kenny Pickett.
but Kenny Pickett might end up saving them, though.
They could
They
start
have
playing
bigger
better.
problems than quarterback.
yeah.
I didn't think I'd say that, but I think Kenny Pickett could be good. Now, the Bills and the Chiefs, we're going to talk about that because I actually have that in my best bet
Yes, you
segment
did.
coming up.
You pulled that one out.
Matt Rule, no longer with the Carolina Panthers, fired. You are watching coaches here come and go. You had a Rick Neuheisel prediction. He's going to end up somewhere, you think, of all people, Rick Neuheisel. But Matt Rule, what's he going to do? Is he going to?
He's going to have a lot of suitors.
Well, do you think he's going to do TV, or is he going to do college? Is he going to do NFL? I think he could come back to college and have his pick of jobs.
That's what I think. I think he's coming back to college. Nebraska could be calling. Nebraska could lay out $8 to $10 million, say, fix my program.
And he might be able to. He's a Penn State guy.
He fixed Baylor.
He's a Big Ten guy.
Well, and so here is my concern. And again, I said this at the very beginning of the year. New athletic director, new president of Penn State.
Right. Yeah.
James Franklin goes on a losing streak here. 0-3, 0-4.
Possible. Yeah.
We've seen weirder things happen.
We have, but I don't think right now. He just signed his new deal, and he's got a heck of a class coming in. I would be more. Next year is the year.
Just keep in mind, though.
I think next year,
the fan base is calling for Matt Rule, and they have been for a while. So it's out there.
Yeah, I would much rather James Franklin than
Me
Matt
too.
Rule, but that's
Me too.
But that's me. We will see what happens with Matt as he wanders the well of coaches that need jobs. All right, so I've hinted at this. I just want to ask you two more questions, Dano. Really, this is one of the bigger sports weekends I can remember.
Indeed.
Do you feel that way? There's just big game after big game after big game.
I have been on a sports high between the Eagles, the Phillies, and Penn State. I think I'm going to come back a little bit to earth this weekend with some of the matchups.
Sadly, we probably will, yes.
But this is one of the bigger weekends we've had in quite some time. I really felt like, whether it was the pandemic itself or, the kind of the lingering effects of the pandemic, I just felt like my sports teams fell apart.
Yeah, no, I think so.
For the last couple of years.
The world fell apart and our sports teams fell apart.
This has been a lot of fun. And, again, that's just from the teams I follow. But when you see all the matchups we have in our graphics coming up, there's a lot more than just our local sports going on. There's a lot of fun things.
Okay, so I'll put you on the spot. Final question. What is the game you're looking forward to watching the most?
Oh, Penn State, Michigan. I look forward to it every year. It goes back to when I was a student. It's always in October. It's always when the leaves are turning. There's always something on the line. And unlike the Ohio State game, I don't feel this sense of doom. Penn State has beaten Michigan frequently in my lifetime.
Right.
Whereas Ohio State, I usually just kind of chalk it up as a loss. But I'm excited because I think it's going to be a great game.
Interesting. Okay, I agree. And we are going to talk about that and more because it is time now for
Games of the Week.
So these are games we usually try to pick some weather games because that is what we're focused on and where weather may have an impact. Most of the country is going to be quiet this weekend. It looks like a perfect October weekend for many, many regions. However, I do anticipate that there could be some shower activity. We're going to get into the weather here. Dan, run us down the lineup of our games of the week. We have 5. We have 3 college and 2 NFL.
We do. And so 2 of them are 2 Big Ten matchups that have huge implications. First, we'll start in the Big Ten East, which I hope we can put these divisions to bed very, very soon. But anyway, here we are. Penn State, Michigan. Michigan comes in as the favorite at the Big House. I hope to hear that roar quite often in the next couple of weeks. But not this week, as they are in the Big House. They're on the road. Michigan favored by 7. Over-under 52 seems a little generous to me, given both offenses seem to sputter at times. The game I know points are going to be at a premium is Minnesota and Illinois. You just look at the difference in the over-unders between the 2 games.
And Minnesota has to go to Champaign. How about Brett Bielema, 5-1 on the year?
When was the last time, maybe going back to Ron Zook, that Illinois was relevant?
It was 2011, I think, was the last time they were ranked. So it's been 11 years, and he's got them. It's Wisconsin South, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Now Ibrahim is back. Mohamed Ibrahim, the running back from Minnesota that is tearing through people. This is a really fun matchup.
Yeah, and again, it should be a bruising game on both sides because they both love to run the football and shove it down each other's throats. Tanner Morgan might be the better quarterback in the matchup, but either way, I think it's going to be close.
And Illinois doesn't necessarily need that with the offense that they run to have. They just need a quarterback to stay out of their own way. Alabama, Tennessee.
This is probably the one you're looking forward to the most.
Paul.
There's going to be a lot of phone calls.
I think this Alabama team is vulnerable. I think they've had too many close calls recently. I worry about their lines. Mm-hmm. I worry about their quarterback play, which is weird to say since Bryce Young. Whether or not he plays, I worry about it. This close. Alabama being favored by 3 touchdowns or more, and then they play a close game. This is happening too often.
It's happening too often, but we've kind of seen this from time to time from Nick Saban's teams. They kind of lie back in the grass at
Well,
times, and then they pounce.
Well, they do, but they've been playing tighter recently, and some people I know are blaming Bill O'Brien for the offensive play calling.
Oh, no, he's a genius. We know that.
Well, I know, but I'll tell you, the natives are getting restless, and now they have to go on the road. They have to go on the road to Knoxville. And this is Neyland Stadium is going
tough.
to be loud.
Yep.
That's a fun game.
Rocky Top.
Rocky Top, Tennessee. All right, let's move on, Dan. Talk about these two pro games because there could be some weather here.
Yeah, we got Sunday action here with Ravens and Giants. The Giants obviously coming off a hot start to the year, almost unpredicted hot start to the year. Now, again, you mentioned the Saquon Barkley factor, but Daniel Jones, too, a little bit more than a game manager lately. He seems to actually be playing much better in this Brian Daboll
kind of wrote him off
offense.
a little bit, but he's okay.
Ever since the turf monster got him against the Eagles, I've had trouble buying into him, but regardless, here we are.
Right.
And then finally the big one.
Yeah.
The really big one. The 8:20 game, the Sunday Night Football matchup.
The best
Cowboys,
on TV.
That's right. And Cowboys always get this slot. But anyway, I digress on that. Cowboys, Eagles. Eagles are favored by 5. This could be a huge statement win for the Eagles because Dallas has been a thorn in their side, even going back to the Doug years.
And they are a good football team. So both of those games have 5-point favorites. So where do we stand? I think that's the next question here as we move in to talk about the weather. I am a little concerned about a shower or two in Ann Arbor on
Have to watch
Saturday.
the front coming through, cooler weather.
I don't think it's going to be like the Northwestern game, right?
No. But I do think winds in both Champaign and Ann Arbor could be swirling at times with this front coming on.
But a beautiful fall day with temperatures in the 50s. Meanwhile, Knoxville,
Wow.
Tennessee. The orange sun over the orange stadium, 77 degrees. It's going to be a great day as the Crimson Tide go in there and try to take care of business.
Should be a lot of fun.
Against the Volunteers. So there's those showers we mentioned. Timing is everything here. Big noon is the kickoff.
Yeah, I don't like noon kickoffs, never have.
For both games, by the way.
But it could actually be helpful weather-wise because it looks like as the day goes on, those shower chances just kind of linger.
Yes.
Temperatures maybe near 60 degrees in Ann Arbor for any Penn State fans heading that way. It is going to feel like fall Champaign, too. Similar type weather, maybe a little bit warmer there in Illinois. Winds, this is where I'd be most concerned. At times could be swirling 10, 15 miles per hour, especially in eastern Michigan.
Yeah.
Something to keep your eye on.
If the Penn State-Michigan game is close, college kickers, hashtag it. You know that they could come down there, so I am concerned. Knoxville, Tennessee, the day starts off just fine. This is the 3:30 CBS slot, and to me, it should be okay. There could be a few showers, though, by the end of the game.
Yeah, otherwise, I think they're dry, they're warm, ahead of the front. Again, timing's everything. Their timing looks pretty good.
Yep.
Winds could pick up a little bit out of the southwest, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of field goals happening in this game.
Correct. And remember, if you're listening to us chatting about the weather here, again, you can go on our YouTube page. It's on ABC 27 News and the Weather Wagers playlist. You can see some of the graphics we have made to talk about the weather for these games. Then on Sunday, East Rutherford and Philadelphia. Again, starting out nice, but this front does concern me because I think there's going to be some clouds and perhaps some showers around the area as we move into Sunday afternoon and evening. But the front also kind of dies out.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the story here lately. I do think some showers could be an issue, not necessarily thunderstorm action, but ahead of the front, it could be nice for tailgating, warm weather, temperatures near 70 degrees. But as those clouds roll in, it's overcast, it feels cooler, but
maybe a little breezy.
Should not be a significant problem. You mentioned the breeze. Again, southwest ahead of the front, about 10, 15 miles per hour we'll be watching at times, but shouldn't be super gusty on Sunday. More of a wind heading into Monday, actually.
Yep. So I think both of those games should be okay. The weather's not going to have a major factor this week, but we'll keep an eye on some showers. The interesting thing about this line for the Penn State-Michigan game is I think it's big. So it started out at 5.5 earlier in the week. Now it's jumped to 7, and that kind of actually alerts me to the fact. So I actually was on Michigan yesterday, and I changed it today. So my official pick is going to be with you at Penn State plus 7. I think it's a big spread, and I think this is going to be a fairly close game. I don't know if Penn State can pull this out.
This is a season-altering game for either team. I don't think it's a 7-point spread. I think it's going to be closer than that, and I don't see Michigan pulling away. I don't see Penn State pulling away either.
I think it could be very close, so we're just going to take the Penn State to keep it within that 7. Both of us like Illinois. They are at home. They're hot. We like Brett Bielema. He's hot. We've got Illinois. I've got them to keep it close because, again, Minnesota's sneaky.
They are sneaky.
And they are just as hungry. They're getting their running back. Mark my words, Mohammed Ibrahim back. So I don't know that Illinois can win, but they will keep it close. You, on the other hand, say, forget about it. Illinois is going to take this one in Champaign.
Well, and what makes me nervous is the last score I just witnessed, 6-9. So is 6.5 too generous?
Yeah.
I think, again, Illinois wins. They find a way to win. But I think this could be, if you're into points, don't watch this game.
You could be right about that. It really all depends on Tanner Morgan, too. If he shows up, he could have a big day. But Illinois' defense, one of the best in the country.
Yes.
Alabama, Tennessee, we differ on this. Again, going into Knoxville, listen, there is it almost seems like a perfect setup for Nick Saban to come in and blow the doors off Tennessee, which I think you're thinking. But I like Josh Heupel. I like Hendon Hooker. This Tennessee team feels different to me. I do have some questions about their defense. But if Jimbo Fisher can limp into Tuscaloosa and do what he did, I think Nick's going to have a tough time in Tennessee.
I do agree that's all a factor. However, I think Alabama is going to figure it out. They have a ton of talent. I don't think Tennessee's quite there yet. They might be a full year or two away from really being a national contender. I think it could be a good game, but I ultimately think Alabama pulls away, especially because you don't want to get Saban when he's mad.
Yeah, true, but Jimbo had him pretty mad. And,
Yeah.
So
He just didn't have all his weapons.
It's kind of like we said about the Packers and a few of these other. Something's a little off.
Something's
And
not ticking yet.
Yeah. So all right, now we've got the pro games. We're both the same on this. As surprising as the Giants have been, I think they come back down to earth.
It's a mirage.
I think it's a mirage. I think the Ravens go in there and handle business. You do too. And then, of course, we think the Eagles can pull it out. I would maybe feel a little differently if this was in Dallas, but it's not. It's at the Link.
Well, and I feel good about this line. It's not a touchdown.
Correct.
You know,
Neither's the Ravens or
this
Giants.
Seems reasonable.
Both of those lines seem reasonable to us. So those are the games of the week with the weather. Now, we love to pick a game
We
not
do.
many people are talking about, so cue it up.
Under the radar.
We're going pro this week,
We
Daniel.
are going pro.
Okay.
Now, we've mentioned it often. Something is weird going on with the Packers, but even weirder, the Jets winning football games, a winning record 3-2. In fact, the person you got this jersey from has to be a pretty happy camper.
Well, I would think so. I would hope so. And they've had some. Has Flacco been playing?
He was.
Yeah.
He was,
Okay.
which, again, another blast from the past. They blew hen at
But-
quarterback.
Again, is Zach Wilson going to play this week? I think. Is he coming back?
I mean,
we have
who
to
knows?
wait and see.
I'll wait till I hear from Shefty.
But listen, again, odds coming from Caesars Sportsbook. That's where we pull these odds from. They're valid as of Wednesday, October 12th. Right now, the Packers, they've dropped to a 7-point favorite. They were a little more than that. I think this is Lambeau Field.
Uh-huh. Good luck, Jets. This isn't the Hotspur Stadium over in the UK.
Correct. And at some point, you got to just think that the chemistry between Aaron Rodgers and his receivers, and I wrote about it in our column, that it's been off. I think he finds it. I think the Jets are going to, it's a mirage a little bit there too.
Can I ask a question? What's so bad about running the ball anymore?
Well,
if your offense can't click, maybe you should run the ball a little bit more. And this is where I think some of these younger coaches outsmart themselves. Nick Sirianni started that way.
say, guess who is running the ball more?
Right. And it
The
worked.
Eagles, yeah.
It worked. Got him into the playoffs last year.
Because
So
they've got
I'm
a stud
curious.
running back too.
I'm curious to see if the Packers change philosophy a little bit until things start to click.
Yeah, and I think we both like the Packers here, right? As
we
show,
do.
Let's show the pick here. Well, actually, no. First, we do want to mention weather because you had mentioned too, this under the radar game. This may have some issues.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be significant, but I do think light showers.
Now this game's at 1, so our graphic
Yep.
there is a little off.
But either way, that was showing
yeah.
the timing of the rain. There will be rain
Later.
sometime toward the end of the game, and that's what I'm concerned about.
And the other thing we're concerned about is a little gusty, right?
Yeah, so the winds are certainly going to be picking up throughout the day. It is a front moving on through. Showers, maybe some wind, especially as those showers kick up. There could be some gusts.
Yeah.
10, 15
Maybe
miles per hour.
an extra point issue or two.
Temperatures in the low 40s. It's
Yeah.
that time of the year already in Lambeau.
Yeah, it is. So that's why too. You don't know if they can cover. I think they can. I think they're going to get this right. But you're just going to pick them outright money line and say, maybe they get a field goal win, but the Packers
Right.
are going to win this game.
I think they're going to win this game. They need this game. That's the other thing. I think they need this game to kind of get out of the muck.
Yeah. Speaking of that, let's cue up my segment now.
Time now for Brett's Best.
I need to get out of the muck because I went 0 for 3. We talked about that. I'm going to go with the Fighting Irish this week. Stanford at Notre Dame. They are a
How about that?
17-point favorite, but I will tell you, as much as I like David Shaw, something's wrong. Could his job be open?
Absolutely.
They are not playing physical Stanford football.
Well, and I think they're not recruiting.
No, and, we both kind of like Notre Dame going into the year. Marcus Freeman had some hiccups, but I think they found themselves again. They're 3-2. They beat a decent BYU team. They're at home. Stanford is not a good team.
And Notre Dame's getting better quarterback play right now, which is huge.
Drew Pine, and so this is a primetime game under the lights. I think this is their chance to say to the country, we're still here.
Yep.
So I like this. It's a lot. It's a big
it's a lot.
spread.
It's a lot.
But I'm gonna go with the Fighting Irish.
It's at home too.
That's my point. I just like them. Now, this is an interesting game.
You just said something about arriving.
Right.
Poor Florida State. They're trying to arrive. They're right there.
And they went 0-2 the last 2 weeks. But again, those losses, Dan, were to Wake Forest and NC State, two of the better programs in the ACC.
Well, and they threw away a chance last week.
So now they welcome in Clemson.
Literally threw away a chance.
They did. No, they did. And so it's the ABC Clemson Variety Hour Saturday night as they are scheduled in that slot more often than not. Dabo Swinney's got to go to Florida State. Now, this is interesting. So I noticed that this line keeps dropping. Mm-hmm. On Tuesday, it was 4.5.
Interesting.
I thought it was fishy. Today, it's 3.5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody knows something. I like Florida State at home. Again, I don't know if they can win, but I could see this being tight, like a 27-24 game or a 33-30 game.
Interesting.
The number's 3.5. I'm getting them at, so I like Florida State here to come out. And Clemson just feels due. They're playing the best football I've seen them play in a while.
Yes, in about 2 years' time.
But I just feel like they're due. We will see.
Okay.
We will see. It's a tricky one. Now, the Bills at the Chiefs. That's that big game in the AFC.
This line does not make sense to me.
How so?
I just think the Chiefs, I mean, if you watch their games, they kind of toy with you a little bit. You know, they kind of let you hang around, but in the end, they win.
Well, I'm not taking the line. I'm taking the over because I think both quarterbacks like to score points.
I think there's going to be a lot of scoring.
So that's a preview of my picks. We got Notre Dame. I'm going to take them to cover. I'm going to take Florida State. I'm going to take the home dog. Okay. And then we're going to take the over. We're going to wrap that up in our picks. But now it's time for yours.
It's Doppler Dandies.
Whoa, baby. This is going to be a week. I am going after the big guns here.
And you're sticking with the college ranks.
I'm sticking with the college ranks only because this is the most hyped, most anticipated weekend of college football that we've seen so far since we started this.
Right.
Oklahoma State, TCU. Mm-hmm. Spencer Sanders, Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy. Love the man. He's a man. He's 40. If you know that quote.
He's actually about 52 now, but yes.
Which is also wild to think he's been there that long. But he always has a very good upstart type of program.
He does have a very good mullet.
He does have a mullet.
Yeah.
But TCU, tough test. Very tough test on the road. They just dispatched Kansas, who we thought very highly of. But the Big 12, who would have thought going through Oklahoma State and TCU at this point in the season? Because Oklahoma is
a lot of times Mike Gundy chokes in big situations.
I do agree with that.
So keep an eye on that one.
Yep.
And you're going to give us your pick coming up. Now this is the ACC.
ACC because we got Doran, we got Mr. Babers there, NC State and Syracuse. Syracuse favored in this one. I just feel like again
it's at the Dome.
It's at the Dome, but NC State tends to have a little more talent. They kind of are always that sleeper. They never quite break through. Could this be the year? And then finally, Lincoln Riley named his price, wrote his own check to coach there. And all he's done is win. And I think that continues here this weekend. Very tough test on the road. Utah Utes.
They're favored.
They're favored.
You surprised by that?
I'm surprised by that only because of how they showed up this past weekend.
Yeah, they let me down. I will say that.
Yes, they were a letdown.
But you picked that. So now let's reveal them. This is our list here of
final picks.
All right, so we both are on Penn State here, and I just think it's going to be a tight game.
I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a fun game. So help me if it comes down to the Manningham type of catch at the end. I can't live through another one of those.
I was there. I was in Ann Arbor that day.
That's wild.
I never want to go back. Illinois will cover. U of them money line. How about a little side wager on the Tennessee-Alabama game?
On old ball coach, huh? Head ball coach.
You want to do a Cowboys jersey?
Sure, if we can find one.
Oh, I think we know Mr. Richards
Yeah,
over
you know,
here.
if someone has an Aikman jersey,
Yeah,
I'd be
an Aikman
willing.
jersey or a Cowboy hat.
Let's do
Tennessee,
it.
Bama, because if you think we feel, I mean, the Mets are laughable. If you think we feel dirty in a Mets jersey,
Cowboys during Cowboys
I would
week.
feel criminal in a Cowboys jersey.
I would too. I might cry.
So, shake on that. Here we go. We got it. Bama, Tennessee, right?
Let's do it.
Okay. We both
And
like.
Josh Heupel, you trust.
I do. I'm putting my faith in him. Clearly, I'm 0 for 2 in this. Ravens and Eagles, we both like. Packers, we both like. Notre Dame, I'm taking, as what we said, to cover Florida State. I think they can hold on at home with Chief Osceola there. I think he's got to plant that spear. And then I like the over in the Bills and the Chiefs.
Interesting takes. I'm not sure I totally follow all of them, and maybe you don't follow me either, because I really think my picks are coin flips. I will say I don't know how each of these games are going to go, but let's take the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. I think they win. I think they're on course for a big season. I think they could challenge the top 4. You know, we mentioned a few weeks ago, are we kind of locked into 4 teams again? Oklahoma State could make things interesting, I think.
Well, and that's my theory on Florida State. By beating Clemson, they can make things interesting in the ACC, at least a little bit. I don't disagree with that. I do think TCU's good, though.
Yes. So the Horned Frogs might have a challenge there. NC State, on the other hand, I think gets a huge win in Syracuse. I just don't think the talent balance is there in Syracuse's favor. Now, again, Dino's a great coach. We'll see what happens, but I'm picking NC State and then USC. Actually, I think that's the easiest pick out of the 3.
Interesting.
They're rolling.
Don't count out Kyle Whittingham.
I agree.
They're physical.
But
They're
they don't
at home.
They don't have Caleb Williams, and they don't have that offensive scheme.
I think that's going to be a fun game. That's in prime time Saturday night.
Should be a lot of fun.
It should be a lot of fun. So that is the wrap up here, how we see things and how we see things shaking out with all the weather. So, all right, I lost the bet this week. Ordinarily, not that we need to do a side wager every week, but that Alabama-Tennessee game, I mean, I think it's a good one because I don't know what's going to happen. We disagree on it, but I'm pretty confident.
I'm confident in Nick Saban only because of the track record. I'm also confident in the fact that the talent balance seems to favor Alabama. Now, I think Josh Heupel's doing a great job. I don't want to discount it, but not quite yet.
In conclusion, I will just say LOL Mets. They won over 100 games and now have nothing to show for it. The Phillies, meanwhile, are taking on the Braves. We don't need to necessarily show anything for it, but boy, it's nice to be at 1-0. Go Fightins.
Go Fightins.
Let's wrap this up by this time next week. Maybe we will be in the NLCS.
That would be a lot of fun.
Wouldn't that be great?
Unexpected. You know, I thought they could get past the Cardinals. If they can get past the Braves, they can beat anybody, in my opinion.
I think so, too. All right, wrap it up. Tell everybody again where they can find us. Keep in mind, if you're listening, you can watch us. We are on YouTube.
We are on YouTube. We're also on abc27.com. You can get our column with the write-up, all of our reasoning behind our picks. Also, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and, of course, at YouTube, whether you want to listen to it or watch as well. It's all there for you. Enjoy, everybody.